Welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. You're joining me for the round 6 review. And boy, it is another tough chapter in the book that is this season. I actually can't remember the last time I've been this far behind this early on in the season. It's wild and still falling at the moment as well. So yeah, we got a lot of work to do this year. I think it can be done, but it's definitely not being easy. A lot of funny things have happened this year, stuff I haven't seen playing before, which, you get a little bit of that every year, just a lot of that this year. And that's okay. It's interesting. It makes the game different. But yeah, definitely hurting at the moment. So trades last week changed a little bit on the fly after seeing what Bruce's score was, and then also seeing the Hayes injury and Rochelle's poor score. So ultimately, I decided to move on Grundy, not because I thought Grundy was a bad pick or anything like that. And for those that were on Twitter, you saw the trades and you also saw that I said, holding Grundy's fine. And he was fine in the end. What did he score? Like a 120, 130? What was it? He only lost 9K. Wow, a 129. And then his break-even's back to 134, that's manageable. He's got another good matchup this week too, from memory. So, so traded out Grundy. So I could get Bruce's score, and because I knew I was going to get Hayes most likely next week as well for cash generation, I needed to move one of the rucks out, and just Grundy was the one that had a bit more money in him, and Wits have been playing well. So Grundy got moved on, bought in Petrarca and DeGoey, and then moved on Horn Francis, who played pretty well on the weekend. Did he make a bit of more money? I think he would have. Let's have a look. Did he go up in price? He went up 6K. So yeah, a little bit more, but now his break even's quite high at 83. So if you didn't trade him last week, you'd probably be trading him this week or looking to move him on. So Horn Francis out. And who else did I trade out? Someone else that wasn't great. I can't remember my trades. Oh, Rao. But he was good this week, 103. He met his break even, so I don't think he lost any cash, or if he did, it was $400. And now he's reset his break even a bit back down to 66, and actually should be okay to make money for a couple of weeks. So if you held him, well done. I moved him on because I wanted to get the upgrade season started, and unfortunately, what compounded this trade outs is obviously Bruce coming in. Good score, and we take those. But Petrarca and DeGoey both underperformed this week, which is, just hurts. There's lots of things that aren't going right. So not having Sicily is pretty bad at the moment. Not having Brody's pretty bad at the moment. Not having Gorn has hurt the last few weeks as well. And then Oliver was the trade-in target for this week, the planned one, with his high break-even of 100 and whatever it was, 70-something. We decided we'd wait on him. Play the break-even game, try and extract the value out, and got bitten pretty badly, a 168 this week. So just lost the 3K. If you picked him up last week, especially for someone like Petrarca, well done, because Petrarca ended up dropping more money. It's just one of those funny things with how SuperCoach goes. So those are the trades. And then captain, vice captain was the safe kind of option we talked about, and 108. It's not the end of the world, but if you look at the midfield, no one actually really produced. I didn't even realize this. There's a lot of sub-tons in there. So really, Cripps, who I was never going to put the captaincy on, first came back after an injury, was the only other real captain's option. And this is dreadful. Wow. Okay. So I guess just reviewing the team quickly, the backline all held up pretty well. Dawson had one good quarter and then a lot of bad ones, which, we need to see more good quarters out of him. It's weird because I still don't think they've exactly found his place in the best spot to get him cohesive with the team. Hewitt's been a beast, absolute dominance. Crisp was okay. He started off really well and then faded a bit in the second half of that game. And then Shorty, Shorty was good. I thought he was everywhere. I'm actually surprised it was only 111 in the end, but he was good. Good bounce back game from him. And then, the unfortunate... I won't skip over Whitfield. Whitfield, to me, I thought he looked okay again. He was getting into the right places, getting the ball, just had clangers early, didn't use it that well. Definitely seems like his disposal efficiency's been down on previous years, and that hurt. I think the biggest change was in the fourth quarter. They put him onto the wing, and he scored a lot of his points, so I'm hoping they continue with that in future games. They've got Adelaide this week. Should be a live kill. A lot of people are going to ask, should I trade him? I still my answer is no. You want to be upgrading the rest of your team. There's very few situations where I think sidewaysing someone that's only 450k makes sense. And then yeah, the rookies down back, and this is going to be a big theme for this week, is that the rookies just all died at once. All had injuries, all had poor scores, just killing the cash generation. We went from looking really good on money and like we're going to be able to upgrade our teams pretty easily to it being somewhat tricky to navigate again, which is very interesting how quickly that switch flicked. It can always reverse. You know, maybe a lot of these rookies post good scores. We saw some of the ones, especially ones that don't have like Gibcus, for example, play out 100 kind of out of nowhere this week. And now going into West Coast on Friday, which is another good matchup, he looks like he could make a ton of money, which is really good. But yeah, unfortunately, the ones I had were pretty bad. I tweeted that outside, before Dacos and Martin played, the other 7 rookies I had play averaged 39. With, I mean, DeConning being the highest of those 66. Then you had 3 do not plays in Dixon, Stevens, and Hinge. So yeah, out of 10 rookies, an average of 36 is just shocking. You're not making money off that, which is just really bad. You're looking for scores in the 50s and 60s. And really, like at a minimum, and only DeConning did that. And then obviously Dacos and Martin kind of kept on, good on them. But yeah, it was bleak week for rookies. So yeah, McCartan was on for a better score than this, but really sad to see him get a head knock, and really sad to see the footage of him in the change rooms, like just distressed. That's, you know, CTE and concussions are a really big problem in contact sports like this, and for him to have had that many and be copping more is sad. It's almost one of those things where you wonder, is it the right thing to do to let him keep playing, as much as it's his career and all that type of stuff? It's just, yeah, the long-term consequences of that are no doubt going to be bad. I think the only positives is it was a relatively minor one from what it looked like and from his reaction afterwards, but still stacking up those concussions, just, yeah, bad stuff. Hinge, I mean, with the Crows getting up, I don't see a need for them to make changes. So it feels like it's still going to be hard for Hinge to get back into the side unless they feel there's something matchup dependent this week, which I'm not sure they will feel against the Giants. So I think he's unfortunately going to stay out, which is really frustrating because we've got both McCartan and Hinge as it stands. They're not playing next week. It's DeConning that you're fielding. Cats play Freo, which probably isn't the best matchup, and DeConning's pretty hot and cold. I mean, the 66, is that his high score for the year? I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Yeah, it was. It was his high score for the year. I mean, he's slowly been trending up, I guess, but yeah, that's rough. Mids we talked about, largely disappointing here. The good ones were Steele and Oliver, who I don't have. That sucks. It just sucks. Just one of those weeks. And obviously Mills scored 200 and something. It was the 23rd best SuperCoach score since they've been keeping SuperCoach scores. So yeah, a really good game from Mills. And even Parrish had a pretty good game, right? He's back up somebody, a 133. So yeah, out of the 575k options in Petrarca, Parrish and Mills, Petrarca was the one that dudded it. I guess the good thing is that Petrarca comes up against Hawks this week, which is who Mills just went large on. So hopefully there's something he can do there. But part of the reason why we wanted to get him in last week was because he had a good matchup and didn't really come through on that. Yeah, not good. I guess like the only positives really from the midfield this week is that Holden Cripps paid off, which is great. That was definitely the advice on a 1 week injury, just to hold, especially given where his price was at. Yeah, doing so made sense to me. But yeah, I was hoping it would put me in better stead this week. You know, having Cripps come back, getting Bruce and fielding his scores, hoping these things would help move me up the ranks. And it's just, I'm not even staying still at the moment. So yeah, just shocking. Dacos and Martin were both good. Martin in particular is really good. I'm sure he must have a really low break even again. It's at 2. Wow. So he, over the next few weeks, should, you know, easily get to 400k, I would imagine, which is good. Getting a lot of money on him. What's interesting with Berry and Dacos, I mean, so Berry, firstly, 84. This is a good score. His break even still somewhat low at 62. But he's actually at a very similar price to Nick Dacos now, who has a break even of 80. So Dacos' score spiked pretty crazy on the 125 3 weeks ago, and then he's gone back-to-back 71s since, which means that he actually has a pretty high break even now. I mean, obviously he can ton up again, and they've got a good matchup in Gold Coast this week. So he could reset. He could definitely meet that 80 and reset that break even. But it's somewhat interesting for people that have both of these to consider who do you trade out this week. Dacos, who's shown he can have the ceiling and has the defensive swing, or Berry, who's kind of got the lower break even, more mature body. His matchup isn't nearly as good against the Swans this week. I don't think you'd have to trade either if your team's in a better situation than mine. But for me, it's gonna have to be one of them. And then on the bench, so yeah, Rochelle, Ward, Stevens. Ward, he's like, his break even's 26, so he's fine to hold. Break even of 26, he's fine to hold, but just another almost game. There's been so many almost games where you could see him popping an 80 or whatever and just having his cash generation go on. They've got Melbourne this week. That's not a good thing. What's Melbourne rated for? Third against midfielders. I mean, this isn't always the best. It just gives you a range. They're definitely one of the tougher teams for mids to score against, and even tougher for forwards. So not good for Connor McDonald, who plays up small forward. What's his break even? 24. I think there's a good chance he doesn't make that this week, but that's scary. Rochelle was disappointing. 85 break even now, which makes him a really good trade out candidate this week. I think the tough thing is that he could spike another big game and reset his cash generation, and he even has the ability to do against some of the better teams. So his fixture at them coming up: GWS, Carlton, Brisbane, St Kilda, Geelong. These are just really tough matchups, and you don't want to be holding him this long. So I think Rochelle is a really good trade out target for a lot of people this week. Yeah, Ward disappointing, and then Stevens. With Swans coming back and holding on, it's not obvious to me who they would be changing to bring him in. I guess they had a couple of injuries today. So McCartan will miss a game with concussion, but Stevens is in a like for like for him. And they had McDonald, I think, who also went out with concussion. But once again, you're looking for a forward, not for Stevens. And you still got Kennedy, who was the sub that could come in as a midfielder as well. So yeah, it's frustrating because I think he's been playing okay in the seconds. It just doesn't seem like any spots are opening up or the Swans aren't losing in a spot where they need to recall him. And I really need him recalled soon so we can make another 80, 100K or something like that. He's still got a very low break even. What is it? -1. Same boat as Hinge, who's got a lowish break even. Just need him to play a couple more games. The good thing is the Swans play last this game this week. So he's a very useful loophole, which he hasn't necessarily been in other weeks. Ruckline, Witts was good. Just persist with her. He's a hit out to advantage monster. He plays Grundy this week, which is a tougher ruck matchup, despite the hate that Grundy's been getting. He's still a good ruck and works well around the ground. So, we'll just persist with Witts for now. But someone that I don't necessarily think will be a keeper, despite how well he's averaging at the moment. He's spiked a lot of big scores to kind of keep that average up, but he's also dropping some 80s and 70s. So I could still see myself trying to get to Gawn and Darcy as my ruck 1 and ruck 2, or Grundy still in there and having Witts as like the 4th ruck. So, maybe someone that I look more towards as a last upgrade or something like that. But doing the job for now for sure. And what he's made, how much he's made now total? 150K. So he actually made the 150K and has a 77 break even this week, which is very achievable. And then a lowish break even next week. So could see him get to 550, 560, something like that. And then, Bruce was good. We needed new ways to generate cash with some of these other rookies going down or just killing their scoring altogether. So Bruce was the obvious one this week, was my top trade-in target. So made 93K straight off the bat, -46 break even. And the upcoming fixture for him is not too bad in terms of rucks either. So you can definitely see him going on. And the pleasing thing is that he worked well with Flynn, which we saw in one preseason game, but that's a very small sample size. So to see it actually play out in the season itself, I think was good. And both rucks did well, so I think they persist with that structure. Dixon, unfortunate with the calf injury. We're still yet to learn a little bit more about that, just 1 to 2 weeks. So ideally he'd be back because once again, someone we need making money, but it sounds like it might be a touch longer than that. And then the forwards, so yeah, like another disappointing line for me actually. Hayes' score on field, brutal. Yeah, that's. I think actually, like in hindsight, with how my trades worked out, I could have looped it so I got Wards onto field instead, which would have been like 30 points. But given where I'm at, like I could use all the extra points. But yeah, that didn't play out. Dunkley was very good. Yeah, De Goey, a bit like Crisp, really good first half. Although De Goey's Supercoach points didn't really line up with his Dream Team points. He's getting scaled down. He had something like 8 marks, but a lot of it was uncontested through the middle, and Supercoach just doesn't tend to rate those as highly. There wasn't enough contested stuff in there, but the roll's still good. Still has some like good matchups to come. So Gold Coast this week, then Tigers, and then unfortunately a poor one in the Dogs. But yeah, he's 78 break even, so he's actually got a quite achievable break even this week, and someone that you could still target if you were looking for a forward. Although I think Parker is probably going to be a more popular option this week. And Heaney scored a pretty low score, right? So what did he score? An 80? 81. He's got a 123 break even, so I guess you could wait on Heaney. Yeah, Butters had gastro during the week, was rumored to be a laid out. And normally, if he was going to score 58, I'd say, like, yeah, be a laid out. But given what my cover was, then 58 looked pretty good this week. So, yeah, he obviously played forward a lot in this game, didn't get as much midfield time, didn't look himself. And what's a little bit tricky here is that Rosie's come in and played really good in the midfield, and they're quite similar players in terms of what they offer to that midfield. So it's going to be interesting to see if Butters comes back into the midfield this week now that he's feeling better, presumably, and then how that mix plays out with Rosie. Hopefully we're getting him back to that mid-time and really seeing the best of Butters, but it's been very up and down. And then Cogs a 91, despite kind of not really getting the CBAs that we would like. Not sure if this pick's a keeper or not, but I assume he's still got a low break even, 61. So yeah, he's still making money. Crows are a good matchup for him, I would imagine. So yeah, some more to come. Cherry, once again, a little bit disappointing. And actually, he's at the point where I could see some people wanting to trade him out. His break even's just the 30. And then Carlton might not have Pitney this week, which would be very good for Cherry. So yeah, one that I'd still rather hold at the moment than trade, but I can see people maybe moving him on if they've already traded out a lot of the other cash cows. And then Hayes, yeah, just really sad. He was looking good early, and then the ACL, which is just a shame, especially given how hard he's worked to be at AFL level. So speedy recovery. Hope St Kilda does the right thing and offers him a contract for next year. But yeah, that's just a sad one. And then Durden was shocking. What's his break even? This is going to be heartbreaking, isn't it? 60. Oh my God. Yeah, the only positive is they've got a good matchup this week. Although they had a good matchup last week and they didn't capitalize. Oh, I guess like rest of Freo played well. I just thought without the small defenders that Carlton Smalls would have a pretty good outing. It just didn't happen. So the problem with Durden made a little bit of cash, but now he's got a high break even. McDonald lost a little bit of cash. He's got a more achievable break even, but a bad matchup. Problem with both of these picks is they haven't really made enough money to trade them. You're not getting a lot done trading them at the moment if you're trying to upgrade. So I think I'm in favor of just holding these types of picks at the moment and leaving them till later. Maybe move them on during the buys or something like that. But yeah, very frustrating picks. And I think like what's worrying as well is I could see a lot of these being dropped this week. I could see Durden getting dropped. I can see McDonald getting dropped. I could see Ward needing a rest. DeConning should be fine. And then yeah, McCartney and Hinge won't play. Yeah, it's just rough. So trades this week, trade philosophy, same as it was last week, which is we're upgrading now. We want to be making sure that we're improving our team each week and trying to improve it on field as well where we can. So getting more of the bad rookies off and getting better rookies on, which means, yeah, we're trying not to sideways picks too much at this point. So in terms of rookie downgrades, it's really slim this week. The obvious one is Hayes, And part of the reason why I moved on Grundy last week is so I could bring in Hayes this week. So Hayes is a 123.9k. That's what the starting price is based on price. Rookie from Port Adelaide, negative 97 break even after a 94 and a 75 in his first 2 weeks. He should easily make us probably 200 to 300k, depending on how well he scores. Hasn't been the best on field, but the number one ruck role is his, with Lysette being injured for that longer period of time. So yeah, he's just a bench rookie that we want to make a boatload of cash for us. This week is I mean, they've got Ryder coming back, so it should be, I guess, pretty tough against the Saints with Marshall and Ryder tag teaming him. But then the week after that, they've got the Dogs and then Cherry with North. So 2 very decent matchups there. So can see him making some good money over the coming weeks. And I think it's Geelong after that and then Essendon after that. So lots of matchups where he can make good money for us, and we'll probably hold him through to buys, I would imagine, is when he'll be traded out around that time. So, yep. Outside of that, you've got Hobbs. So the big thing last week was Roses, who I was originally targeting as well, got a calf injury, although we don't know the extent. I've heard some say it's like a 1 to 2 week, or a bit like Dixon's. I've heard others say it was precautionary and might play as soon as this week. So people kind of scrambled. My advice was Perez on Twitter or in Discord. That was what I was recommending. Just because with Hall out and him potentially getting some kick-ins, this role might be okay. He scored a 52, which is nothing flash, just went up to 20k, but his job security seems okay at the moment, even if the scoring's not amazing. I know some people went early on Hobbs, which was definitely in my trade plans this week, was to bring in Hobbs, but he did not score particularly well. So just the 34 this week after 65 the first week. He found a fair bit of the ball, just wasn't the best user. And then coming into the Dogs this week, that's, not great. I mean, the Dogs haven't been as scary as they have been in other years for SuperCoach scoring and playing against them. But yeah, this is 153k, so it's elevated rookie price. Negative 10 break even, which is good, but yeah, the scoring potential, just because the job isn't great. And then, I don't know, there might be changes this week, so is his role in jeopardy? Probably a bit hard to say, because Stringer and Merritt came back and he held, so maybe his job's all right, especially if he gets named this week. I would say his job security's okay. It's just around whether or not he's actually going to make enough points at this 153k mark, and you don't really want to put him on field either. So yeah, that's the tough one with Hobbs. Just the reality is, so there isn't really many other options. So I think there's Parks for Carlton, who scored poorly for a higher price, and job security is even worse than Hobbs. And then the only other one that's probably worth talking about is Callahan for GWS. So 198k mid, looked pretty good on the weekend. They've got a decent matchup in the Crows this week, but then who have they got after that? So tougher matchups and then into a nicer one. But yeah, like, this is a pretty mixed schedule of tough and easy games. He could make some money, and he's probably a better on-field option than some of these others. It's just the 198k price is quite bad. I mean, we've seen with Dacos and Horn Francis. I mean, maybe not so much Dacos, but Horn Francis struggled to make enough money. In fact, we've traded him out for less than 150k, more at 120k. So downgrading to someone at this price point feels pretty bad, because you just, you could be getting extra 60k if you're going to a cheaper option. And it's just unlikely that you're going to get 150k out of them, but definitely feels like a better field option than some of the other rookies I have, like Ward at the moment. So yeah, interesting option. That's probably the other one that isn't Hayes, if you're looking to find 2 downgrade options this week. There were a bunch of one gamers. I wonder if I can bring those up. Guys that played their first game that did pretty well this week. Coleman we'll talk about in a little bit, I guess. So obviously, a preseason option we're looking at. I don't think you need to move on him this week. Watch him against the Swans. And if he scores really well, then maybe it's a weird middle of the season mid-price option we look at. But yeah, not a requirement. So Dempsey for the Cats, 65. Played pretty well. Did lots of stuff I actually thought was interesting. And at the 102k price point, very well priced. I wouldn't want to move early on him this week, just because I don't know what Geelong going to do with roles, what his job security looks like, or anything like that. And a lot of Cats scored very well in that game, so against North. So yeah, I'd want to see him in a competitive hit out this week before looking to bring him in, not one to bring in early. And then Paul Curtis for North, who scored worse and also plays like a smaller forward role. But given where North's at, I think there's probably a better chance someone like him gets an extended run. I just worry about the opportunity and supply. I mean, picking small forwards has been pretty disastrous this year in terms of rookies. So for both of these, I'd probably be waiting a week. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, but the old loophole donut kind of ruck that now plays the West Coast. Just 56. I don't think he's as good an option as Hayes or anything like that. And I'm not sure if he holds once Dixon's back. So yeah, don't worry about him. Mansell, I thought played all right. I'm actually surprised it was only a 45. But he's obviously at a much higher price tag. And then McComb was disappointing. Really good numbers in the seconds, but the role at the AFL level was more of a wing, half forward type role rather than really much on the ball time, and just didn't shine a lot through it. So pretty hard to look at him. Oh, Haitley, George's boy. Yeah, that's a no. And then Baldwin, who played his second game, just, not enough supply of good opportunity. He kicked 5 goals in the VFL last week. He did have a chance for a shot at goal. It just didn't pay out. So yeah, this makes things really tricky this week. Just the lack of rookies this week, seemingly lack next week as well. The positive sign is that Greg Clark is debuting for West Coast this week, who is someone we're really keen on in the preseason. I'm pretty sure he's 117. Yep, 117, 300. So got injured, which is why he didn't debut round 1. Has come back and played a couple of games in the Waffle and done really well in both. And with Yo concussed, he should make his debut. Whether or not he holds is another question, but he's definitely good enough to hold and definitely good enough to score well. And it's someone that, like, say he comes in and plays well this week, and then Yo comes back and he's still named next week. It's someone that we might go on early just because his scoring should be there, and better than maybe some of these other small forward options. So just planning ahead, thinking about that. All right, so trades this week. Upgrading is still the theme. So for those that have Oliver, let's just start there because it's not me. I think Connor Rosie is an interesting option. 400k. He basically, the back half of the Carlton game, they put him in the midfield and he did well, scored well, and then they played him in all of the midfield for the last game and he scored really well. It was 150 something. Now 153. Now, the difficult thing is that, Butters was out of it. So what does the split look like when they're both in there, if they want to persist with Rosie, which they should want to? He got 10 coaches' votes. So everyone rated his game very highly for what he did. Butters coming back. And then also it was against West Coast, which is a bit like, meh. I mean, the half against Carlton was good, and that was the half they came back in, but Carlton also kind of had shut up shop. So this is a really tricky one. His break-even is -13, which means if you want to go for him, it's got to be now. But you are taking a little bit of a leap of faith that Ken Hinkley persists, which, I mean, Butters, Houston, Boak, all been thrown around this year. He's not immune to throwing magnets by any means. Probably would cop more criticism than someone like Bevo. It's just we don't traditionally own or haven't traditionally owned that many Port players. So that's risk one. Then second is he's got a pretty decent injury history at this point, especially with his foot. And so that's also what makes this a pretty tricky pick, but it is the type of pick that could win years, just because you could see him getting into the 500s, and so you kind of pick him at 100k cheaper than what he is. And look, even if he doesn't pan out over the next couple of weeks, -13 break even, he's going to make some money and you could move him back on, especially if you've got extra trades. The tough thing is this fixture's a little bit weird. So St Kilda, I think, is going to be an okay matchup. Dogs, I don't love as a matchup, especially because Dogs should dominate that. I mean, St Kilda should probably beat them too pretty handily, especially if they're the real deal. And then the North matchup's obviously quite nice. So, and then I think their fixture opens up a little bit. So this is a tough one. But yeah, Rosie is a discount option I like. It's a left field one. For a lot of people, it'll be going for the midfielders this week. And look, Oliver is the one for me. Was hoping he's going to drop more, but yeah, 619k. He's dropped to 53k for the year. If you don't want Rosie and you already own Oliver, I think Miller is one that you can look at. But what his break even's 130. He could keep dropping a bit more, but I wouldn't mind getting him at around this price point. If we look at the other mids, who's kind of at a good point, I think a lot of people will be chasing Mills after he's 214, but he's already priced super high at 632 now. Like, Oliver's cheaper, who's scored better for longer. You're only 20k off someone like a Steele if you don't have him, which I don't, and I'd go Steele over Mills. So, I don't think chasing Mills is good just because he's already priced really high and he's got the injury history. If you want to go for it, go for it. But yeah, I think missed the boat on that one, unfortunately. Brayshaw, what's his break even? Because he's another one that's getting at a very good price at the 596k mark. 110 against the Cats. Now, they could send O'Connor to him, but O'Connor hasn't exactly been a good tag, and they've got North the week after. So if you're keen on Brayshaw, if it's not this week, it might be next week. What's their fixture's pretty good after Geelong too. So North, Gold Coast, Collingwood. Not so great, not so great. But yeah, like definitely one you could still consider. Who else is in here? Keys is one that a lot of people are looking at. So he's priced very decently, 591k. What's his average for the year? 122.5. That must be right up there with the top averages, right? Puts him sixth for total averages. Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Actually, that's probably just what I would rather have it on. So what do I think of Keys? I was saying it. This feels like Jared Lyons of the last couple of years, where he's not flashy. He's just a worker. No one really considered him in the preseason, so a lot of people still don't continue to consider him. There's nothing wrong with him as a pick. I think he's a perfectly fine pick. He should be good. I think he should continue to be good. It looks like he'll be fine with Laird in, with Sloan in. Doesn't kind of matter who's in there with him. He'll continue to do well. So, I don't hate this as an option. I'd probably still rather have Petrarca at 555k, which sounds absurd, especially after the scoring from the weekend. But yeah, just the truth. Tom Green bounced back. Wish I was in that fan club tent, but like an all right game from him. I still don't think he's quite primo status this year, but he's going to be close enough to the mark that those that got him cheap did well. Laird, Laird's too expensive. I probably wouldn't touch that. Steele, as we mentioned, was good. He's just too expensive for me at the moment. This is a very high cost. Problem is, Port's a good matchup. Kind of have to hope that the Melbourne and Geelong games here, he scores poorly, and then I can kind of pick him up cheaper after his bye. All right. Then the only other one, sorry, drink break, ASMR drink break. The only other one talking about is worth talking about is Cripps. So if you've got Oliver, you don't have Cripps, and you're looking for an upgrade option, you don't like Rosie, Cripps, I think, has got to be your man. He looks like he's going to be top 8 or thereabout, 520k. He's gone like so 139, 119, 162, and 132 in the 4 full games he's played, and then he's obviously had the missed game, the injury game. That's like a 140 average or something ridiculous through that period. I mean, even with the 30 in his score or whatever, he's still averaging 118. His break even is on the higher side, 125, but it's very reasonable that he achieves that, especially against North this week. I think in terms of value pickups go, probably the best one this week that isn't a speculative option like a Rosie. So, yeah. All right, and so how do we get there? Let's go back to my team. How do we get there? And that's the big thing for a lot of people. So, actually, one other thing I should check for those that it's useful for, because I don't have a Driscoll in this format. 22 break even for a Driscoll. He's perfectly fine to hold for another week. There's a chance that if he doesn't score well against Geelong, he caps out in price and you'll need to trade him out. But he'll be at 300k at that point. So for those that trade him at 160k, like, well done, you got a good deal out of that. What are the other popular rookies I don't have? Oh, Dow. Dow got subbed out with an injury. I don't even know if he's that popular. Lost money. Wow, 97 break even. That's a tough one because I think he's best 22 and could score well, and West Coast is a good matchup. If he isn't playing this week, then I would trade him. If he plays this week, I think you've got the option to hold him. Okay, so yeah, back to playing a combination of break evens and injury game here. Who are the trade out options? Because I want to get in Oliver. That's what I want to do this week. I think it's the best thing for my team moving forward. As much as I would like to go the risky option of taking Rosie this week, I think play it safe and just stick with the one strategy, which hasn't worked so far, but it will come around at some point. Maybe, I don't know. Oh, jeez. Okay, so look, the one that a lot of people will be looking to trade out is Hayes, 260k. I guess the good thing is if you've got lots of rookies that are leaking money or potentially leaking money, you could hold a Hayes for another week and trade him out next week. He's not going to change in price or anything like that. But he is someone that will be going for me. Rochelle is someone that will be going. Both has more money in him and also high break even. And then everyone else's break evens, despite the poor games, is somewhat low. Durden's isn't, but as I mentioned, I kind of can't trade him on just due to the fact that like there's no money in him. What am I meant to do? All right, so Rochelle, I think it's Berry over Dacos, even though Berry has the low break even. And the reason why I'll show you is because Dacos just has that DPP and I can put him down back, which I value. If I could put Berry down back, I would put Berry down back and probably trade Dacos this week. So yeah, if you're looking to keep them in your mid either way and you don't really need to put Dacos down back, I could see people moving him on. And it is a little bit early and he will make more money, but upgrades are important. And if that's who you have to move on to upgrade, then all the more power to you. All right, now, so who am I bringing in? So firstly, we've mentioned by name Oliver. Where's Walsh's price at actually? What's he price at? 601k. 106 isn't that good. 115 break even. He's got the good matchup against North. And then Crows. Not a bad fixture for old Walsh. If you want to bring in like Walsh as an option this week, don't mind that either. Love Sammy Walsh. Someone I would have started with this year. Had he been available? All right, and so then we've mentioned Hobbs is probably not an option this week. The one that everyone should be trying to get, if you've got space for it, is Hayes. So we'll put Hayes in. And I've got 210k. So if Roses is back, look, it could be Roses. And then I've got 80k, which would really help for trades next week. If Roses isn't back, I don't think I'd go early on like either of the forward rookies I spoke about, or like Clark or something like that. I don't want to rob from the future too much. So I think the other option would be Callahan. So get Martin down there, get Callahan. Where are you, Callahan? Into the mids, and then that would be trades done. So let's see how this looks. So Oliver into the midfield looks pretty good. Yeah, Butters can be there. Kind of doesn't really matter. Nah. Put Martin in the midfield. Okay. So then mentioned that Stevens doesn't play until the end of the round. So I can loop Callahan and Ward with Stevens, which is hopefully I get one good score out of two of them. McCartan's probably not playing, and I probably don't want to field Durden even against North. So unfortunately, Dixon plays first game, can't use him as a loophole. So I think this might be the setup. The one thing I obviously don't love about this is DeConning on field, but I'm hoping this is just a 1 week problem. And then next week I'm getting in, I don't know, if I get in Clark early or something like that. Martin comes forward, Clark goes into the midfield, that type of thing. Not loving it though. So the problem with this team is, so the midfield's looking, I guess, pretty decent in the sense that we're up to 6 primos, 5 down back. Ruck's a little bit scuffed. Forward line's looking okay, but yeah, not having Sicily down back, not having Brody up forward, and then that would mean that I wouldn't have like this rookie on field, which is not going to score well, I don't think, and I wouldn't have this rookie on field, which isn't going to score well. This is going to keep making me leak points pretty badly. Brody scoring 50 on DeConning each week's just not good. Just not good. It's going to make it really hard to play catch up. And then, even though Witts is doing well, Gawn has been smashing it. And against Hawks with Lynch playing, who just gave up 160 to Laddams, like there's a world where Gawn goes 200 this week. In fact, if you have Oliver and Gawn, I think it's a really tricky vice captaincy option. Like, who would you put it on? They obviously gave up a ton of points to Mills too. So, yeah, in terms of captain, vice captain this week. Oh, by the way, the only thing that might change this is if Hinge is back. I'd rather play Hinge on field than Dacos. So I would probably not swing Dacos down back, leave him in the midfield, push Martin forward, and then Hinge on field. But I just don't know if Hinge is going to get a game. Okay, so yeah, vice captain, like a few interesting options this week. So as I mentioned, that D's Hawks game, Oliver seems like a good option here, especially coming with big score. Gawn seems like a really good option here as well. Even Petrarca, bounce back game, he's got high variance, don't mind that. The other one that is very interesting is Cripps against North, so I think that's potentially an option. I probably would struggle to put it on Cripps over Oliver. And then, I'm probably back in McRae for a bounce back against Essendon. His last 3 against Essendon are 154, 122, and 137. Sorry, I know from the way my screen's set up, you can't see this visually. You just have to listen. But yeah, he's 154, 122, 137 in his last 3 against Essendon. So given that Essendon's not travelling the best, I could see another really big score out of McRae in this game. Neil's got the Swans. Took's got Collingwood. Don't love these matchups. I think, it's one of these 3. If you've got Gawn, him. Steele has got Port. So, wow, that's another good option as well. Steele against Port. If you had all of those good options, that's really tricky. Really tricky. Because I think McRae's pretty safe this week. So, do you just want the highest upside? All of them have great ceilings. Maybe Steele doesn't have as big a ceiling as like a Oliver, a Petrarca, a Gawn, or a Cripps does, and so maybe I'd rank him last. But I don't think you can go wrong. Like, I just back your gut on those ones. Into McRae. What's Dunkley scoring like against Essendon? Because I'm sure it can't be too bad either. 75 last year. Then he had 0 in 2020. Was injured, and then 153 before that. So yeah, McRae's the safe captain option. So only other thoughts with this is it does put me in a somewhat tricky position for who do I upgrade to next week. Because there's not a lot of cash left in my rookies, and it's just tough. There's not a ton of really good value discount premiums going on, which is one of the reasons why looking at Rosie this week is interesting. I guess bringing in a Kadeen Coleman could be an option next week, as much as I don't really like doing that, like a mid-pricer in mid-season, because I don't think he'll be a keeper, but he does have swing, which is nice, better than a lot of my other on-field rookies, got good job security, could make some decent money. So yeah, maybe that's an option next week. That's the one thing I'm pretty unsure of. I think so. Stuff that could change this trade plans is if Hinge plays or if Roses plays. I think if Roses plays, I'd probably still rather have him over Callahan, just because you have the extra 70k right now. His break even's better, so he's going to make more money quicker, even if he's, doesn't score as well as Callahan. But yeah, this is the team. Definitely not loving it. Definitely still feeling quite far behind, but just sticking with the plan, keep upgrading and hoping that we can chip away and make some progress at some point. Probably going to need a few things start to fall our way for that to realistically happen. And the difficult thing is, as the teams kind of become more homogenous, because premiums I don't have, I upgrade to. So, for example, not having Steele, Oliver, whatever it may be, as soon as I upgrade them, now if they get an injury, it doesn't actually help me anymore. I'm in the same boat as everyone else. So, yeah, I think it's just going to be really hard from this point to catch up, but we'll keep plugging away. We'll keep plugging away. I guess only other thing I should talk about is like other lines options. I've touched on it a little bit. So like DeGoey, Rosie, Heaney, Parker are probably the 4 options to look at in the forward line. Let's just have a quick look. I still like Butters as an option, but I guess like it's pretty hard to recommend him on what's happened recently. Yeah, Brody's smashing it. 224k. That's such a bad miss, man. Such a bad miss. And then Dillmore's been good. Bailey had an awesome game. Only 135. Wow. Yeah, really no one else worth talking about. Down defense. I mean, I think we talked about like Hewitt and Sicily being the best value options. Their prices are kind of now no longer that value. Sinclair's well gone. I think Doherty is one I'd still had as the number 1 pick over Sinclair, and I think that holds true. And then no one else really looking like good. I mean, Witherden was really good, but and like West Coast are poor enough that he's going to get a lot of kickouts. I just think at 570k, it's pretty hard to pick up now. Not a lot of people looking for that defender. So yeah, not a ton of options down back. Oh, and then Bowie. Oh no, Bowie. Bowie. Yeah. I mean, for those that held, good on you. I wouldn't have had the nerve to do it. I would have traded him out 2 weeks ago, staring at a high 80s break even. Because I wouldn't have wanted to risk the cash. But he's made it through relatively unscathed. In fact, I think he put on a little bit more cash, and now he's got a break even back to 31. So I think it's reasonable for him to get into the low 400s now. Going to make that 150k. So yeah, and a great on-field option. I'd love to have him at my D6, like I do on my fantasy side, and then be able to play Dacos in the midfield instead. But alas. So anyway, that's the review. Some ideas on trades, rookies, premiums, all that good stuff. But yeah, let me know where you're at, how your team's doing. Hopefully much better than mine, and what you're weighing up. I'll give advice where I can. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.